Hello, I'm Lucy Reed. I'm the author of The Family Court Without a Lawyer. I'm here with my son, who we're going to call Bob for today's purposes. Say hi, Bob.
Hi.
Bob is going to help me to make a short video whilst we're on holiday to tell you what's new in the third edition of The Family Court Without a Lawyer. Is that right?
Yep.
Right. So Bob is going to act as my interviewer, aren't you, Bob?
Yes.
Excellent. So, Bob, as is traditional with interviews, do you have any questions for me?
How long have you been doing your job?
How long have I been doing my job? Well, I qualified as a barrister in 2002, and I've been doing it since then, so about 15 years. You're making a face like, I must be so old. Have you got any other questions, Bob? Perhaps about what's new in my book?
Yeah, what is new?
What's new in my book? What's new in my book? There is a little bit of new information about cases relating to children, some more information about the presumption of parental involvement, which was very new, and we didn't really know when I did the second edition what impact it was going to have on how cases worked in practice. We thought that it wasn't going to have very much impact, and we were right. It doesn't have very much impact, so I've updated really to say that. There's a little bit more information in that chapter also about what to do if you are unhappy with the guardian that's representing your children, if you're involved in complex private law proceedings. The short version is that it's quite difficult to remove a guardian. So that's one aspect.
What is a guardian?
What's a guardian? Well, there are different kinds of guardian, but the type of guardian I'm talking about is in cases where parents can't agree what should happen with their children, where they can't agree where the child should live or how much time they should spend with the other parent. And when they get really, really tricky and they've been going on a long time and everybody's got a bit caught up in the dispute, sometimes the court will say, do you know what, this child needs somebody to put their hand up and say, actually, this is what I think is best for the child, even though mum and dad are arguing about it and can't agree about things. So the guardian is somebody who, in the court case, tells the judge what they think is best for the child, and they instruct a lawyer to say that in legal terms as well.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, what's your next question, Bob?
What else is new?
What else is new? Well, there is quite a lot of new information about domestic abuse. I've updated the section about legal aid, so it's more clear in terms of when you may or may not be eligible for legal aid, what evidence is required, and in particular I've updated the section about legal aid eligibility because there's the time limit in terms of domestic violence evidence has been relaxed. So previously, by and large, your evidence had to be within the last 2 years. Now it can be within the last 5 years. So I've updated that. There's a new checklist which tells you when legal aid may or may not be available. There's more information about coercive control and financial abuse. And there is also more information about how the courts deal with situations where the person accused of domestic abuse is not represented and how the court will manage the process of asking questions to test the evidence, because it's uncomfortable for both the alleged perpetrator and the alleged victim to have one asking questions directly of the other. So that's a tricky area and there isn't an easy answer to it, but I've provided some more information about how that works and how it may change in the future. And a bit more information about the legal test for applications for injunctions that are made without notice to the other party. So that's domestic abuse. What's your next question, Bob?
Well, I don't know what's new as well.
What's new as well? Okay, so there's a little bit more in the section about lawyers and legal services, a bit more about unbundled services, a bit more about Mackenzie Friends, a bit more about arbitration, which was quite new when I last updated the book, and now potentially includes cases involving children as well as at the time of the second edition it was just cases involving money. Shall I tell you what's next as well, or have you got any other questions in between?
If I come up with a question, I shall tell you.
Okay, all right. Feel free to interrupt, Bob. General procedure is next on my list. A bit of information about fee remission, which is now not called fee remission, it's called help with fees. That's a useful example of the court service making something into plain English, but it's basically the same system. If you're on a low income, particularly if you're on benefits, and you provide evidence of your low income, usually through some benefit documentation, then you will either get a reduction or a waiver of your court fees, which is helpful. And there are also some kinds of application domestic violence injunctions which don't attract a fee at all. Somebody wrote to me after the second edition saying there wasn't enough information on adjournments and how to apply for an adjournment, what to do if you couldn't make a hearing. So I've added a section about that. And also another topic that seems to come up on the Pink Tape blog from time to time is what the rules are about how you access documents that are held on the court file. So that's what I've added in general procedure. Any questions on that, Bob?
Not that I can think of.
Not that you can think of. Any other questions that have come to you whilst you've been sitting listening to your mummy talk about boring law stuff?
Can I give you a compliment?
Can you give me a compliment? Yes, by all means.
Love your face when you're
You love my face when I'm laughing.
like.
Oh, I wish you could see his face. He's doing an impression of me. Do that again. He looks a bit like the bloke off Wallace and Gromit when he says, "Jeez." All right. Okay. Right. Any other questions, or shall I carry on with my list? Carry on while you die of hysterics. Okay. So I have added some more information in the sections that deal with cases that have a foreign aspect to them. So there's more stuff about jurisdiction, which is effectively whether or not the court is allowed to deal with the case, or whether because of some foreign element to it, another court in a different country is entitled to deal with it. So there's more information about that, how it works with European cases, habitual residence and what that means. More information about taking children abroad, either to live abroad or for a holiday, and how that all works, and also about moving around the country with children, so going to live in other parts of England and Wales, or in other parts of the UK, so Northern Ireland, Scotland, etc. And a little bit of information, more information about divorce and financial cases where there's a foreign element as well. There's a bit more about privacy, publication of judgments and the guidance on that, and attendance of journalists, and the Transparency Project, which is a charity which I run. We're just breaking in the video here while I edit out my accidental reference to Bob's other name. Any other questions, Bob?
How old are you?
How old am I? 43. How old are you, Bob?
I'm 9.
You're 9. Any other questions?
Why did you ask my age?
Why did I ask your age? I thought the people watching this video might wonder how old you were. Okay. I think Bob's having a moment. I'll carry on while Bob's having his moment. Oh dear. Right, so also contained in the update is some information about appealing consent orders and applying to have financial remedy orders set aside, and dealing with responses to appeals. A little bit of information about enforcement, in particular applications to commit to prison, and how to deal with that if you are the person who it's said should be going to prison because you've breached a court order and you're in contempt of court. A little bit more information about parental orders in surrogacy cases and things that can go wrong. There's been a lot of cases where things have gone wrong because people have not really understood the proper legal process, or because something's gone wrong with some clinic somewhere. So a little bit of information about that. There are a few other bits and pieces that have been tweaked or added to, but those I think are the main things really that have changed. There hasn't been an enormous amount of change to the law since the last edition. There's been some updates to procedure, but nothing particularly radical. So really I've been just tweaking things and adding things that people have said. This would be helpful to add more on, and I think you could say more about this, that, or the other. Bob, anything else you think I should cover before we go?
No.
No? All right, well, I think this is me and Bob signing out then from our villa, and I hope you enjoy the 3rd edition. Let me know what you think of it, and please send me your suggestions for the 4th edition, and I will try and add them in if I possibly can. So say bye, Bob.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.